delighted to have Captain Moghe with us. He has an illustrious career in aviation and he will be sharing with us his experience in the aviation industry.
Well, the first thing I would advise anyone who's aspiring to get into aviation is to get your medical done. There are people who didn't get their proper medical done, spent a lot of money on flying, and when they went to get their license and to get their medical for the license, they were told that they were unfit to fly. So there was a lot of money down the drain. So first is make sure that you have the appropriate medical clearance to become a pilot. Okay, subsequently in India you will have to join up with some of the flying clubs. Now in the flying clubs, the flying is rather sporadic because of the restricted number of aircraft and the shortage of supply of spare parts, which does lead to a lot of time on the ground as far as the aircraft is concerned. However, there are occasions when people have finished their flying within 2 to 2.5 years. Okay, subsequently you go for your tests, and on the basis of that test, the DGCA awards you a very generic license. Now in the past it has happened, a lot of people went abroad and got their licenses from flying schools which are not recognized by the DGCA because of the lack of standards that they maintained. So if any one of you is planning to go abroad, I suggest you check with the DGCA, and all this information you will find on the DGCA website as to which are the schools whose flying training is recognized by DGCA. Now the advantage of going abroad is that you can complete your flying training in a very short period, and for the same reasons why it took a long period out here, there is plenty of aircraft available. They are on the ground. You get your instructor, you can fly 3, 4, 5 hours in a day. Whereas in India, you might be able to fly only 8, 10 hours in a month. Okay, so you can complete it in very short time. However, then because you are flying up abroad, you are paying in foreign currency, so it will definitely turn out a little more expensive than in India. US is the one, Australia, Canada, and England, but England is again expensive. Canada, England are expensive. Australia and US, I think, I mean, this is what I remember, what knowledge I had, is they are a little cheaper. Now once you are selected by a particular airline, they will put you through ground school. Now ground school is basically technical and performance training relative to the specific aircraft that the company is flying. Okay, once you have done that, then it is your turn to go on to the flight simulator. The young pilots are sent as supernumeraries. That means they sit in the jump seat in the cockpit and observe the procedures and try and correlate the information that was what they have studied during ground school and compare it to the practicals. Now once you finish your flight simulator, your license goes for an endorsement to the DGCA. Once the DGCA endorses your license, then you start your line oriented flying training. Now this training is, although you are taking part as a crew member on a commercial flight, you are still not authorized to fly on your own. There is every possibility that there will be another pilot, a substitute pilot, who will be available in the cockpit just in case you cannot cope up. However, once the instructors feel that you are capable, then they might do away with the necessity of the additional pilot. However, you are still under training, and once you finish your training, you will be checked out by different instructors and examiners who will then clear you to fly with other captains. Once you have acquired the necessary number of flight hours, there will be a selection for upgrade to captain. Once you clear that selection, then you undergo some more ground training, which will include performance as well as technical knowledge, after which you will go back into the simulator and be trained to fly as a captain. Once you finish the simulator training, then you have to come back and do some more training on the aircraft. And during this period of training, you will be flying as the captain, but there will be another qualified instructor captain who will be flying with you, pretending to be your co-pilot. And he will check you out as to whether you are fit to fly with a regular co-pilot. Once you have been cleared, then you will be able to fly with the regular co-pilots. I would say that this is a big jump, or rather a big landmark in a career of any captain or pilot. To become a co-pilot, you are looking at 6 months. Now, how long you stay as a co-pilot again depends on how much flying you get and what is the company policy, what is the company's requirement. Now, once you become a captain, then there is a requirement in the company for training other people. So, from the pool of captains, they select people who have the aptitude and the inclination and the knowledge, also the performance skills, and train them to be instructors. In the training team, there are also what used to be called examiners, who are now being referred to as designated examiners. They are the ones who will certify a trainee and clear him for flying and make an endorsement on his license. Okay, one is the flight operations. Flight operations itself means the people who are flying, actually executing the flight on the aircraft. Also the people who are supporting them in terms of the paperwork which needs to be done, such as filing for clearances, getting all your documents in order, making sure that any revisions which come are incorporated, and ensuring that the aircraft is equipped with all the documentation as required by the regulations on the status of all the airfields which they are likely to encounter on the way, and also the meteorological conditions. Okay. So that is as far as the flight operations go. In-flight services department. So that constitutes of your cabin crew and flight pursers, etc., etc. Then you have the engineering department, which looks after the maintenance of the aircraft and ensures that the aircraft are well maintained and that there are no snags, as we call them, on the aircraft. Then also we have the cargo department. Now these are the people responsible for accepting and making sure that the cargo is loaded onto the appropriate aircrafts after having followed the regulations as laid down by the DGC. Okay. Then we also have the commercial department. Now these are the people who are involved in ensuring that the people are issued with the right tickets and boarding passes and that their baggage is checked in into the appropriate flights. And of course then we have the marketing department, which is responsible for ensuring that the customers are attracted to a particular airline and its services. My last job was with the international airline called Jet Airways. Initially I started off in the Air Force. I had a stint in the Air Force. Subsequently I left and joined civil aviation. Okay. In civil aviation I have experience of flying smaller aircraft, which was mainly in the United States. Then I got my license, came to India, got it converted to the Indian license, and then took up a job with the airlines over here. Yeah. So once Jet Airways started, I was one of the few who left a job in Indian Airlines and joined up with Jet Airways. And this December I completed 25 years with Jet Airways. They feel that that much exposure and knowledge about science is essential for understanding the aircraft's technical aspects. In the Air Force, in the Navy, as well as the Indian Army. Okay? So people who are wanting to get into aviation could also make inquiries about the aviation aspects in these 3 different services. This is usually the case when you have offshore drills or you have certain hilly areas where land transportation becomes a problem. So there could be openings as a helicopter pilot in these regions. Also, the Coast Guard has its own air wing, so one could experiment with that. Well, definitely I would say that in India we have not reached the saturation point as they have in some of the other advanced countries. There is a lot of scope for aviation, and it's just that people who decide to come into the aviation field in India have to be very critical about what aircraft and routes they choose to fly on. Okay? However, the fact still remains that all the aircraft will require pilots to fly them. So the jobs for pilots is there. Now, there are a lot of pilots in India today who don't have a job. But then there are pilots who have finished their license just 6 or 8 months ago and have got a job. Any person who's hiring would like to take only the cream. Now, if you find somebody who perhaps cannot communicate well in English, but he can communicate very well in Hindi. Now, that's going to be a big problem because all over the world, terminology and talking with the air traffic control is in English.
So can you take us to the glamorous and the non-glamorous part about flying?
It's quite one thing to get up and go to work at 12 o'clock at night and come back at 8 o'clock in the morning repeatedly. You see, your body is not designed for it. The medical doctors will also vouch for it, that somewhere down the line, this kind of lifestyle is going to affect your health or maybe at least reflect on your longevity. Okay? So these are certain things which have to be kept in mind. Also, I would say that unlike some of the other professions where I have seen people sidestep into a different profession, like I know of people who are mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and somewhere down the line they stepped into finance. So it was more of a sidestep for them rather than going back to the roots. Now, aviation is one game where it's very difficult to shift into something else. Either you have to be in that line parallel to your aviation line, but going back to college and learning something new and then getting in that is a very difficult thing. I'm sure all of you must be reading the newspapers and occasionally you hear about miraculous escape because somebody did a go-around, or miraculous escape because he landed in the rain, or miraculous escape because they diverted because the weather was bad. Now these things are all sensationalism. These are absolutely normal, safe procedures which the pilots are trained to carry out. It's just the same way that you are driving around looking for a place to park and you don't find it. So you go around the block one more time and then hope like you will have a place to park. One must not feel that it's a very dicey profession or a risky profession. Yes, any profession is risky if you are not disciplined yourself. The very fact that you're flying in the air and you're absolutely, disconnected yourself from the earth, and of course traveling to new places and meeting different kinds of people, that's a different thing altogether. But yes, the very idea of being airborne is a little, how should I say, addicting.
Thank you so much.